Small Business Tip Show, episode 16. Welcome to the Small Business Tip Show. My name is Frank Thomas, and I'm with Nancy Bover. We have a great show today. It's called Learn to Trust the Process. And it's going to teach you a lot about how to build your business, how to build a product line, or whatever you're trying to tackle. If it feels like a forest, you need to listen to the show. So stay tuned. So Nancy, I hear you've had a busy week.
I have been busy, yeah. I'm looking forward to this week too. It's already shaping up to be pretty busy again.
So tell us what's going on.
Well, I've been busy last week. I was really busy with one of my clients. He's in the process of building out an app, kind of Uber for deliveries, if you will. And we're really building out the business a lot now, really starting to get a lot of attention to it. It's available on the Apple Store, so there have already been revisions on that. So that's been taking a lot of time and trying to define the process of how to get that out in front of as many people as possible in North America in a short period of time. So it kind of contrasts a bit with what I've been doing with my brand and my business since April of this year. I've been taking the slow plodding, methodical approach, and it's starting to pay off too. I'm invited to participate as a speaker in a speaker series for an organization here, and I'm going to be attending my first speaker series tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to it.
That's excellent. And it's been with all this work of trying to show your expertise to the world, trying to stand out above the crowd, basically.
Yeah, that's why I'm really excited about this show today, because it is so applicable to exactly where I am in my business today on promoting my own business as well as working with my clients.
Yeah, same thing here. And this is one of the reasons why this idea came to mind and why we should actually strike upon it. I've actually been talking to one of my customers. I'm helping her build her business. And she uses the analogy of whenever you start a thing, it's like a big forest, and you have to recognize the forest for what it is. But you also must recognize that the forest can blind you. It can discourage you. It can sap the energy out of you. So it's very important to, yes, understand and recognize the forest, but focus in on the tree in front of you. Always just focus in on the tree in front of you. You have to think about the other trees. Like if you're cutting down that forest, and forgive me if there's anybody here who doesn't like forestry, but it's a really good way to explain this. But the idea is you have to look at the trees around if you're going to cut down a tree, because you don't want to get it snagged in the other trees. But your primary focus is the tree right in front of you. And that is to learn how to trust the process.
Yes, try to take it step by step and not jump ahead of the game, right?
Absolutely. It's an interesting thing to build an idea. We had launched our first product. We talked about it in the previous show, Live Stream Genius, and we've had a great launch. We've brought customers on board. Things are going really, really well. And one of the interesting things that have spun out from it, and I knew it would because we saw this with our beta testers, is our customers are coming back to us and saying, hey, how would you guys like to make a product that does this? It fits well with this, and it works with Livestream Genius, and it does this, and it's literally caused a torrent of ideas to coming down the pipe. Enough to I see this forest, and I'm like, wow, I gotta run and hide underneath my bed. But the truth of the matter is, I'm grateful for that because I don't have to be imaginative anymore. My clients are just doing it for me.
And they're telling you what it is that they want and what it is that they need, which automatically gives you a client base.
Absolutely. And it builds and it helps strengthen our client base. And it's a part of the whole idea of the concept that I've really never shared on the show. I think I shared it with you, Nancy, is I'm approaching this business like I call it taking the Adobe approach, where they've built a strong suite of applications and they've turned it into software as a service. And It's a great idea because, first of all, nobody has to come up with thousands of dollars to get thousands of dollars worth of software.
Right.
But Adobe still makes their money because they take a little bit of money every month, every single month. And it's a strong business model. It fits well. And I've always really enjoyed the cell, like, when you get a cell phone and you get a plan, regardless of where you are in the world, it's rare when you can buy a plan and just pay. I want to pay $1,000 and have access to a cell phone for a year. I don't know any place you can do that.
Yeah.
Every month, you must give them some money. It's a great business model, but it's a daunting business model. It's a forest to make this work. And you can even attest to your business, Nancy, in trying to become a recognized expert, in trying to build your business. It's daunting at times, isn't it?
Well, it can be daunting, and you do have to trust the process, and you do have to just keep doing it. When I decided what I was going to be when I grew up finally, and to brand my business in a certain specific way this past April, I made a commitment to do a blog post on my website every Tuesday and every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And I have done that even when I've been struggling for topics, for content, or whatever. I've made sure that I've done that. I've tried to give people valuable content that they can take away from that. And I've integrated social media in that every time I do a post, I put it out on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn and let people know that it's out there. And over the period of time, I have just gained so much traffic. I've sold books. I have links to my 2 books on my website.
Mm-hmm.
I've had more published articles, and as I say, I had this group approach me out of the blue that wanted me to become part of their speaker series. So yes, it has been a lot of hard work, and there have been some days you just shake your head and you wonder, why am I doing this? I'm not really seeing what I wanted to see out of it at this stage. But you have to believe that everything is exactly where it is at that moment, and that it will evolve.
And you brought all the critical points out while you were describing your journey, and one of them is that you planned, you saw the vision for the future, and you made a plan. And that's really, I really want to touch deeply into this because this is critically important.
If I didn't make a plan, I wouldn't be very good at what I do, because that's what I keep telling everybody with their marketing, right? Make sure you plan. That's the first thing you have to do.
But is it the truth, though, that the cobbler's children are usually the ones with no shoes?
And that was exactly where I was until I made the decision this past year, thanks to you being my foil and my mentor. I finally realized I have to put in this time on my business, not just working in my business. If I don't put the time and the effort into my business on working on moving it forward, what credibility do I have for prospects and clients to believe that I can take their business to that level?
Absolutely. It's kind of funny that you said what you just said, but one thing that occurred to me, and this is another one of the points that we'll be bringing out, is the idea of mentorship. Very important, or even an accountability partner. I, in my business for the last 4 years, have spent more time developing $1 million products for other customers than I have for myself. And the despondency is so great that I looked and I had no products, no current products. But I had a long list of customers who wanted me to develop their products. It's lucrative. It's very good. And you could, one could say, Frank, be grateful. But it was still a situation where if you recognize Timothy Ferriss, the author for the 4-Hour Workweek, I was in this work for money mode. I have to work to make the money, work to make the money, work to make the money. If I get sick for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you'll attest, Nancy, I almost spent a year in bed with being treated for cancer. I was very fortunate that my customer base believed in me so much that they continued to support me, and I'm blessed beyond belief for that. Mm-hmm. But it made me also recognize that I had nada. I am the cobbler with the children with no shoes.
Yeah.
And even though I was spending the time with customers, with you, Nancy, I was, like you said, woefully failing at my own task. So it caused me to re-look at this and say, okay, what am I doing for the customers, and why aren't I doing this for myself? And I came across a really interesting feeling. This feeling of, And I've seen it in your face, and I've seen it in the face of other customers whom I mentor, because I won't chase words. I challenge you. I say, Nancy, you got to get this done.
Oh,
You need to
Frank,
figure this out.
how many times did I say to you, Frank, I don't have the time to do that?
I'll make the time.
Exactly, exactly. And you pushing me is what made me suddenly realize, what he's saying is true. I've got to step back. I've got to focus on my own business and grow it beyond just me. So I thank you for that.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you something. What's happened is, in return, it's forced me to look at and evaluate my business, especially our relationship,
Right.
and realize that, hey, my kid's got no shoes. And
Yeah.
I'm in a situation, and I've got to make this happen. And even though I've had a thriving business, I've been in business for 8 years now. When, and one thing that's really motivated this is the economy being slumpy and low. All of a sudden people are like, oh, I want to do this, but it's going to have to wait.
Yes.
And I had 3 months where things were really tight. And of course, it's right in the middle of a product development. And it's really easy to say, I can't do this right now because I've got to pay the bills. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And I had somebody, I was watching a Udemy, the site udemy.com. It's a online university courses. It's not really university, but that's kind of the concept. And this guy teaches how to do these courses and how you can do the courses. And he said something very interesting, and it really stuck, and it really convicted me. Now, I'll be forthright and say this fellow, in my opinion, is not a great presenter. So I can't say, well, he's such a good presenter, so that's why he's successful.
I think this is the guy I bought his
Yes, it
course
is.
on your recommendation. Yes, and I would agree with you.
Second,
Yeah. It's the process, right?
Yeah, that's right. And second, I would also say that sometimes he's not very clear, and so I can't say that he's a gifted teacher. I can't say that. But what I can say is, first of all, he recognized an opportunity. And he said, this opportunity is more important than anything and everything else. I can't say that, well, I have a family. I've got kids to worry. I have a wife to worry about. So did he. I've got bills to pay. So did he.
Right.
And to make a long story short, I actually, what I'll do is I'll put this in the show notes. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I will put it in the show notes. I'll put a link in for the course. I actually do recommend picking it up because it'll show you that if you have a concept, an idea, product, a business, or whatever it is, if you have the tenacity and the stickability power to stick at it and say, this is the most important thing on my plate, it's got to happen, it'll happen. He literally went into over $50,000 worth of debt. He went to the bank and big board and stole from friends, family, and banks the money he needed to make his business. And all he did was he went out of his way to cut these courses for Udemy and make them and make more courses and make more courses. Yeah, the one thing he had going for him, he had stuff to talk about. And he had stuff he could teach. And he was teachable. That's very important to you. You have to be teachable. We all are very unteachable. And it's our pride welling up inside of us. And even though we think we're teachable, we'll think, oh, this is too easy.
You have to stay open.
Exactly. And, one thing I've discovered even within my own journey is there's times I'm thinking, oh, that's easy. Let's just move on. No, stop and do it. Stop and do it. Make sure you understand. Because if you don't clearly understand, we only understand by doing. Can we move to the next step and continue on?
And that's the thing that's important that this young gentleman did as well,
right.
is he did put a plan in place and he followed the steps and he outlines a process.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And one of the things he says is what you said. I made a plan to do 2 blog posts a week. Heaven or high water, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Even if I haven't got anything, I'm going to search it out and I'm going to make it happen. And I will tell you, my road is I'm building this software and I'm building a client base with that software. And we're actually building a business on the business. It's kind of interesting because the tools we provide and the clientele base that we have, they're doing a lot of the same things. So what we're doing is we're doing exactly the same thing. and not to compete with them, of course, but to build a secondary income stream. Because, hey, we're doing it anyhow. How can we say that we're making the tools for the man if we're not the man? You know, we have
Exactly,
to
yeah.
understand the process. And it's daunting. It's extremely daunting. I'm not going to lie. I've already got the docket for 5 new tools. And when I finished this one, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. But, you know, it's also interesting. And every day I have to set aside at least 1 hour to code. Now, an interesting thing happens. When I start putting that time aside and I ensure that it's part of my calendar and I get it done, you'll agree, doing blog posts twice a week, it's not really a big deal anymore, is it?
No. No. And in fact, if like tomorrow I'm not going to have time. So my goal is before the end of the day today, I will prepare my blog post for tomorrow. And then in the morning before I run out to my meeting, I can just post it and post everything on social media. Bada bing, bada boom, it's there. And I haven't varied from my schedule because people are starting to look. I can tell on my stats. When I check my stats every morning, I can check. And after my blog post, those are my busy days. That's when I have the visitors. So people are starting to come back.
Mm-hmm. It's good content. You know, and the interesting thing that happens too, and I've not said this to you, and I should, is that your content is actually getting better. Like, it was good in the beginning. I'm not going to lie. It was good. And I've learned a lot. It's helped my business. You know, never think that this is a one-way relationship. But, sorry, excuse me about that. The fact of the matter is, as you practice your trade, which is putting up this information and you're digging in your mind, what's going to happen is the content's going to get better, and you're going to be challenged to ensure. Because I know I used to teach courses a long time ago as an instructor, and I thought I knew my stuff. When I first started teaching, I thought I knew my stuff. I was a network engineer. I had done the Novell certification. I completed the Microsoft certification, and I got like 100, because I really knew the material. I knew it inside and out, or I thought I did. Now, that's the magic phrase. Once I started to have students in front of me and started to ask me questions, it's amazing how a student will see what you don't know in a heartbeat. Like, they will see the gaping wounds in your knowledge quickly. And when I taught for a whole year in this one training center while my wife and I were in South Africa, and did really good. And I believe I took my knowledge from the about 75-80% to 150%, because my career just boom, 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 boom accelerated. Like,
Right.
I had a CEO position in under 10 years. Or not CEO, CIO, Chief Information Officer, which was normally a 20 to 25 year journey. In under 10 years, I was doing it.
Well, I think you make a great point there that when you teach something, because it's not necessarily that there's gaping holes in your knowledge. It's just that when you're close to something, you skim over some of those things because they're second nature to you. But when you're teaching it or explaining something to somebody, you can't skip over those things, and you don't often know what it is you're skipping over.
Absolutely.
And I think part of why my content has gotten better over time is a couple of things. I think that it was a daunting task. When I first started this, it was like, oh, it's Tuesday, I got to do this post. What? Oh, and I have to write it in a certain way, and I have to engage the audience. And am I going to engage? You know, all those questions were in my mind, and I was second guessing everything. So then I got more comfortable with doing it on the regular basis, and that didn't become such a big deal. And then you and I have done a podcast, I believe, in the past about using tools, and I know that I've posted on my blog about it. And I started to actually use, even though I had it, I started to use Dragon Naturally Speaking, because people like to have conversations. That's what I think is so powerful about this videos that we're doing in the podcast that we've done, is we can have conversations. And in having conversations, we engage other people in a more natural way. So I've actually started doing my blog posts for the last, and my newsletter updates. In the last 2 months, I use Dragon all the time. And I find that by doing that, it's not, even though my writing isn't a stilted style anyway, I find that it's more conversational. And I've had a lot of people reference that it's like they're having a conversation with me.
That's interesting. I never thought about that, but yeah, because I know I've written one or two books and used Dragon Naturally Speaking as my platform. And you're right. Because what happens is it comes out in a conversational style. We're hearing ourselves as we're speaking it. And I do try to focus like I'm talking to somebody regarding a topic that I'm talking on.
Now I will say that had I done this back in April or May when I was first starting to get used to the process, I probably wouldn't have been very good because I wasn't comfortable yet with the process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm quite confident that if I was using Dragon then, it would have just been as stilted as my writing might have come across.
Mm. That's interesting. And there's a lot of things that our audience doesn't know about you, in that you are behind in a lot of places, like technologically. And there's times I'd say, Nancy, you just got to figure this out. You got to figure out how to do video editing. You have to figure out how to do this.
No, I wanted to get somebody else to do it.
You wanted to get somebody else to do it. Yeah. That's right. But I made you responsible for your own tasks. And am I saying should you be the person that does everything in your business? No, but you need to understand everything. I've always said that you don't want to become an accountant, but you need to know accounting.
Yes.
You need to, or else you never know where your business is at. Now,
and I'm glad that I've been doing the video editing because it has helped me have to focus more on how comfortable I was and wasn't in front of this silly little box on top of my screen here, right? And you have to start getting comfortable about that too. I know before my first video series, I actually put out a warning, if you will, to everybody on my blog that, I'm going to be doing this and you kind of got to get over yourself. And it was a process for me to get comfortable to sit in front of this, look at myself and listen to my own voice because we're not familiar with that.
No,
we don't always
not.
see or hear ourselves like everybody else does.
No.
So we have to either get used to it, get comfortable with it, or get over it.
Exactly. And, an interesting side effect occurs is now you will be comfortable talking in front of an audience. You'll actually
I had
easier.
done public speaking in the past, and so that to me was less intimidating than the camera.
Really? Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Most people find it's the other way around.
No, the camera to me, I've never liked the camera. So, but I'm not as bothered by it any longer.
And even though I did years and years, when I was growing up, I used to DJ and I used to do things in that vein. I got comfortable in front of a microphone, but I wanted to have I felt uncomfortable sharing myself to the world. I felt very uncomfortable with that. My face being and then being in video and people knowing my name. And when I started internet marketing years and years ago, when I first started this business, I was very intimidated by putting myself out there. And it took me, Nancy, probably about 4 years to get over myself and just do it and just start doing it. And it has paid me back in spades. Like I literally started seeing some fruitful benefits from it within a couple months of starting doing it. So, and my business continues to grow because of that. That's why, the Small Business Tips Show, in my opinion, like you said, is a great show. It challenges me. It keeps me on cue, keeps me on point. And as well as it is a way for me to get to know, or the audience to get to know me, to get to know you, things that we believe and how we do things. And hopefully that they get something out of it that they can take back to their own businesses.
It gives us an opportunity to work jointly to share some of the experiences that we share with each other, with our listeners and our viewers that, as you say, hopefully are going to benefit them.
Right. So now that we've decided to tackle a forest and we realize that we have to focus in on a particular tree, the planning stage is there. You've done your planning. The next thing that you brought out was very interesting. It was actually in my notes, and we didn't discuss this before, was you need to have the mentor. You need to have an accountability partner. Yes. And it's worthwhile to have several. It's worthwhile to have, I have mentored as well as I'm being mentored at the same time. As much as our relationship, you might feel that, oh, Frank, you're mentoring me. Nancy, you're mentoring me as well, because you are much more of a marketing expert than I am by leaps and bounds, whereas I'm more technologically inclined. But you force me to become a better marketer. And
I think that the best mentoring relationships are those that are reciprocal.
Exactly, exactly. I remember there was a fellow he was a programmer, a Java programmer, and we met for about 6 months every Friday at 9, I think it was in the morning, every Friday, or 10, I can't remember what it was exactly. But we would meet every single week. We would not miss a week. We'd sit down in a local coffee shop and just sit down and say, okay, how's it going? And what's up? And initially, because what happened was he was working with different companies and he had gotten into a bit of a almost like a funk. Like he just kind of got stuck. And brilliant programmer, really nice person, but he was just a little stuck. And he was between jobs, and he had the time to kind of think about this. And I said to him, you need to really start thinking about building your own business. I've been running my own business. I said, yes, but as a contractor to a company. And so in reality, I'm not going to say that, that what you were doing was wrong, but what I am going to say to you is you're like an employee. And regardless of how you slice it or dice it, they say that going into business is risky. Nancy, being an employee is the riskiest business to be in.
Yeah.
How many customers have you got? One. Your employer. And
exactly.
if he decides on Wednesday he doesn't like the look of your face, your paycheck's gone. Your profitability for that ongoing is gone. And
well, to be honest, I've been in that circumstance in the past where you get 2 or 3 clients, but one of them ends up becoming the major client. And so I would focus all my time and energy there, which was great until that contract ends. And then you've had no time to build other clientele. So you can end up really in a very bad catch-22 position.
Exactly. And this is what this person had done to himself. He had put himself into this position where he was now a little stuck, and he was very niched in a particular field, like within the financial field of programming. And I said, you need to open up your vistas, and you need to open up what you do, and hey, figure out exactly what you want to be doing. That's important too. And it was interesting because I thought that I would be pouring into his life, but at the same time, he was pouring back into my own. And that was the whole point of the story. It's never a one-way street. It never, ever, ever is. Because what happens is you're going to share your thoughts, ideas, and processes, and they're going to critique them. And they're going to put the light of day on them, so to speak. And sometimes you're not going to like what you see. But sometimes it's always meant to make them better than what they were.
Or at least to think outside of that box.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Think outside of that box. Think beyond the initial problem. It's interesting when you vocalize a thing. I know when I'm programming, sometimes I have to talk to myself, and it might sound like I'm going crazy, but I'm not. When I vocalize it, I'm forcing more senses into the game. Instead of just my mind churning away on a problem, if I have to hear myself explain the problem, all of a sudden the problem becomes clearer.
Right.
And I don't know why, but that's just the way it is.
You tend to go through it, I think, step by step as a process then, instead of skipping things when you're just thinking about it.
And discouragement does come. And I will say that no matter how exciting something is, you could be doing the thing that you want to do. I know my son, he's going to university right now. He's doing business management, but I could see that he was getting a little bit discouraged. Even though he's got all these lofty plans, he's getting a little discouraged and a little ground down. And I had to say to him, okay, what's the forest? What's the forest? What's the big picture here? What are you trying to do? Well, I'm trying to get my degree because he wants to get his bachelor's in international business management. He really enjoys that. And I said to him, son, you have to keep your eye on the prize. That's the why. That's why you got to sometimes walk up the hill and look at the whole forest and go, yeah, this is why I'm doing all this. And it gives you the ability to run back down into the valley and start working on that tree again. And discouragement's going to come. You're not human if you are not discouraged even in the most interesting part of your processes. I know that I love programming and that, but there's times that it's just like, and it's easy to blame the fact that I haven't got the inspiration today. inspiration and perspiration are two different things. Inspiration is great, but perspiration usually precedes inspiration, not the other way around. Don't you find that?
Well, and I think that's an important thing to note, too. I think human nature is such that we're all going to have down days. We're all going to have days. For me, it's when the sun isn't shining. I'm a big sun person. So if it's cloudy and gray, I'm a little heavier. I'm a little down. But you're right. I mean, what you have to do is you have to try to put that behind, focus on what's in front of you for today. What were you going to accomplish? Back to me, all about me here. When I wasn't sure what I was going to write about on a Tuesday or a Thursday, it's like, well, I got to put something out. So, you check and you see what people are questioning, what are people wondering about right now. And so you address that. People are wondering if Facebook is where they should be, for instance, or something like that. Should I be spending more time on social media? How much money should I be allocating for a marketing budget? I'm always looking for topics, obviously having to do with marketing and public relations, that people are looking for answers. So when you feel a little bit discouraged, it's okay to be discouraged. Everybody is going to have those days. But try to keep that behind you. And as you say, focus on the perspiration.
Exactly. The one thing that I know always strikes me is it's okay to be discouraged, but don't let the discouragement be your excuse not to get it done.
Exactly.
You have to remember that even though you don't feel like going to the gym this morning, you need to. You can't exercise extra on Friday and hope that you're going to get everything, that exercise in for your body at the end of the week. You got to do it every day. That's why we get every day. This is why we get tasks we do every day. Hey, there's going to be times where the unknown happens and you can't get it done, but you have to make it up somehow. You have to realize that once you start to get into it and you start making it part of your daily process or your weekly process or whatever process it is, what happens is you're putting that perspiration into it. You're putting that persistence into it, and the inspiration, as you said, comes. You start looking for stuff. You start becoming better at your particular field or niche or whatever it is or whatever you're doing. Sometimes when I'm programming, I am stuck. I am so wrapped around a tree. It's crazy. So what do? I pull out a flowchart and I start trying to flowchart it. I try to look at it differently. And boy, Nancy, I'll tell you, I just want to bury this whole thing into the ground and walk away and go do something else because it's giving me a headache. But I have to persevere, because what happens is, now here's the danger point. You don't do it for the day you were supposed to. And then tomorrow comes and, I'm still too busy. So you don't do it the second day. And then the second day turns into a week. And a week turns into a lifetime. Yeah. And you don't get it done.
Well, and I think it's important, too, if you are feeling discouraged, it's okay to reach out and tell somebody, like your son did. And I think it was probably 2, maybe 3 months into my process here since April. I remember saying to you at some point, Frank, why am I doing all this? It's not really paying off here yet. And you said, keep doing it. Trust the process.
Trust the process.
And I kept doing it, and I kept doing it, and I'm getting more invitations, and I'm getting more credibility. I'm getting more sales. You do have to trust the process.
So, guys, if you're listening to this podcast, realize we're getting real, and we're being straight up with you. We have had times when we've been completely clientless and penniless, but that's where we all start. We all start there. You look at Bill Gates, or you look at the guy who's trying to run for president right now.
Donald Trump?
Donald Trump. He was penniless at one time. We seem to forget that.
Yeah.
But he had the tenacity to go after it. He had the tenacity to make his dreams real. And if you want to make your dreams real, like you said, Nancy, you have to trust the process. You have to trust it's going to take time. Everything will take more time than we ever could believe. I know we've mentioned this on another show. I had said to you, I can knock out that program in 2 weeks. And 3 months later, it's still being made.
Yeah.
But everything
will take longer and cost more.
Exactly. But, I had to make decisions on when to release, and I kept my feet to the fire. And I won't lie. The last few days, last few hours, last few minutes, I was ready to collapse because I was going for 20 hours. Just because I would not let that release date come and go. Now, did any trumpets come out of the sky and proclaim that I got it done? No, but I know I got it done when I said I was going to get it done.
You were accountable to what you said you were going to do.
Exactly. And that's what is the magic in the pudding here, is I became accountable. I made a plan, and I kept myself accountable to that plan. No, things will alter, things will change, but the gist of what you planned should never change.
Well, and you can always make improvements. You can always change things. You can always make improvements. So if you say you're going to release something on November 30th, and it's not quite there, release it on November 30th. But then make your changes, make your adjustments, make your improvements, and come out on December 3rd with those, or whenever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure that people know that when you say something, that they can believe it's going to happen. That gives you your credibility, and it makes them trust you.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the money. That's the money phrase right there. Because
without the trust, you got nothing.
If you don't trust yourself to get it done, how is anybody else supposed to trust you?
That's right.
Well,
I don't know about anybody else, but I know for myself, if I write something, I can look at it an hour later, a day later, a week later, and I can always make changes. I can always say, oh, I don't like how that reads anymore. Nothing is ever finished.
No, and I think that's important to realize as well. Like, I look at the software that I produced and I'm selling, it's not finished. And there's a lot of places that even there's little bugs in that. But there's always room for Windows 12 and Windows 15 and Windows 100, because we're at Windows 10 right now.
Yeah.
So there's always room for improvement, and we have to realize that as well. Nancy, I think we've nailed the nail on the head on this show.
Yep, thanks very much. Hope we offered something of value. I feel we did.
Absolutely. And Nancy, so give me our listening crowd a quick skinny of how they can find you.
They can find me online at agapimarketing.com, AGAPI marketing.com.
Absolutely. And be sure to stop by the Small Business Tips Show site. That's smallbusinesstipsshow.com, and get your free download. You do have to put your email and name in. I'm not going to spam you to death. I want to be able to give you good, timely information. And the first piece you're going to get is how to make your passion your purpose. So make sure you check that out. Nancy, great show. Lots of luck on your speaking engagement this week. And
thanks very much.
I look forward to seeing where this is all going to go for you.
Great, thanks.
Have a good week, everybody.